welcome to the Resupply, where we bring you your weekly double tap of all things Laserforce. I'm Guy next door, and with me as always is Thanatos.
What's up?
We got another week closer to Nationals. You can just feel the hype train pulling into the station, ready for everyone to get on board, so get on board, yo. Today we have a couple of special guests. These guys are absolute living legends of our game. If there was a Mount Rushmore for Laserforce Space Marines, right alongside Than's face, these two guys' faces would be on that mountain. So joining us today, from Brisbane, we have the legend that is Tragedy. How are you, man?
Man, I'm good.
Good.
It's great to get up at 8 a.m. instead of the crack of noon as normal.
Actually, on that point, we've got, I think it's like 4 different time zones we have here today. The second person joining us, the other legend, all the way from Oakleigh, Melbourne, we have Nite Owl. Hey man, how are you?
Hey mate, how are you?
Super duper. Thanks for joining us, guys. For me, it's about 11 o'clock in the morning. For you guys, it's 4 a.m.
11 o'clock in the morning.
It's much earlier than that. So thank you. We appreciate you guys coming on.
No worries.
Piece of cake.
So before we get into that, Than, you want to give us a recap of Nat's info, seeing as that's become somewhat tradition?
Laserforce Internationals this year for 2018 are going to be July 30th to August 3rd in Brisbane, Australia. Again, that's Brisbane, Australia, not Brisbane, California. If you go to Brisbane, California, you're going to have a really bad time. The cost per person is going to be $200 Australian. At this point, we've got players confirmed from the US, Australia, and New Zealand, which is always a party when you get everybody together. So yeah, that's the where, the when, and the how much. So if you're on the fence, you haven't bought your plane ticket yet, you should do that.
Absolutely.
Because the closer you get to July 30th, the more expensive the plane ticket is going to get. So pull that trigger, buy that ticket, come and have a really great time. Well, maybe not a great time, at least a good time dealing with all us idiots. It's good fun.
Come and join us and drink whiskey out of a McDonald's takeaway cup, as has become tradition for the guys from Oakleigh.
Yeah, well, let me stop you there. It's a slushy cup.
Oh, it's a slushy cup.
Oh yeah.
Complete
with slushy.
There's nothing quite like a delicious alcoholic slushy on a hot Brisbane winter's day.
Morning.
All day, isn't it?
Huh?
It's all day, isn't it?
All day, yeah. Well, I mean, for some of us, yeah.
From the second we touched down and they turned on that slushy machine, it was
Yeah, so we're gonna, seeing as we've got you guys here and you've been around for pretty much forever, Than thought it would be a good idea if we take a look back, if we cast our minds back to the day when young Tragedy had a moulet, if you will, and young Al was also there.
when Trage had 2 good knees.
Oh, yeah.
Compared to the 0 now.
Yeah, so Than, kick us off.
So, Trage, a lot of what I kind of know as far as the history of Laserforce Nationals from the Australian side from the beginning has come from conversations with you over the years, because I've known you for longer than I care to think about or want to admit, really. Yeah, it's probably better that way. So if I remember correctly, wasn't the first kind of official-ish intercenter competition back in 1994? Would that be an accurate statement? Am I misremembering something, which is entirely possible?
Mate, don't ask me dates. They're way too long ago. Man, 1994 is certainly even further back than some of our listeners were born.
That is true. Not wrong.
So it might have even been a little bit earlier than that, but the first inter-centre competition that we had was actually satellite Laserforce that opened up in Browns Plains. Now, those who don't know Brisbane, well, Browns Plains actually isn't in Brisbane, it's in Logan City, which is right next to it. So the Browns Plains Centre opened up, and it was mostly populated by Woolloongabba players who just happened to live on that side of town. We challenged the Brisbane stayers to an inter-centre competition. We played just a basis of a 5-on-5 one hit, one down game, which is the norm at the time. We played half a day in Browns Plains. We played half a day in Brisbane, and the Brisbane Centre Woolloongabba ended up winning very, very closely. I was a member of the Browns Plains team that time.
It seems weird that you didn't win the tournament that you attended.
Oh, I don't win them all. Come on.
High percentage, Traj. It's a pretty high percentage.
I've had some pretty strong team members around me, though.
That is very true.
Now, the second one was, and I don't really remember the dates. We, after Browns Plains closed, a Townsville Centre opened up. And we heard they were playing Space Marines, but they weren't doing it the right way. So this is obviously after SM5 started. So we're talking Gen 4 suits. And we went up there with eight players.
So for the rest of the children playing at home, when was Space Marines 5 actually released, and when did it actually become the official tournament game for Laserforce?
Well, after Gen 4 suits were introduced, we were playing Space Marines 4, so there was no medic involved in that. Did a lot of testing based on that, and then Space Marines 5 was brought in, which actually, believe it or not, was based on a game that was created in Browns Plains by one of the guys who was mucking around with a few of the systems down there. So they built Space Marines 5 on that look, and when other centres opened up, that's when we started to basically challenge them to competitions as opposed to trying to create a true inter-centre comp.
Do you remember what year that was?
No. It would have been. It definitely would have been somewhere between 93 and 96, because I just remember where I was working at the time. 95, Townsville.
It was before 95, because the first one I played was Easter 96.
Okay. Easter 96. It might have been Easter 95. It could have been 94. But yeah, we took a bus, the 8 of us, and we travelled up to Townsville and played over the Easter weekend with them. We ended up playing an 8 versus 8 Space Marines competition of 4 games.
Did you just load in the extra scouts, or was there a couple of extra resupply?
We loaded in the extra scouts.
Nice.
Yeah, it was. We didn't play with the extra resupplies at that time, so 4 scouts, commander heavy in the resupplies.
Yeah.
It was pretty hectic. Their maze was
That would have been
big
horrible
but not
in
huge.
maze.
Yeah, it was tight, but we did that because we wanted everybody to be able to play, everybody that travelled. But it ended up being the difference between winning and losing, because the extra men basically helped us through.
So, where to from there? These early comps start. Where does the game progress to from there?
Well, when Oakleigh opened up, we introduced the first inter-centre competition. We had Townsville came down. Am I right, Al?
Yeah, it was the 4 teams.
So there was Townsville, Brisbane, Oakleigh, and who was the 4th?
Ballarat.
Was Ballarat, okay.
Yep.
And we were playing over the Easter weekend. That was, without looking at it from a business sense, that was the preferred method because people were able to travel. I think the owners looked on it a little bit sourly for reasons I can't quite fathom. I don't know.
After the fact, he was all for it to start with.
Yep.
But after the fact, when he realised that he lost, we went from 9 in the morning on the Easter Saturday until 3 in the morning Easter Sunday was the entire Space Marines competition.
Yep.
And then we backed it up with a Masters the next morning. On Easter Sunday, some 6 hours later from 9 until 2 or 3.
That's right. That's when we were playing Masters competitions.
And I'd imagine it would have been like a couple of $100, well, like 100 or $150 per person or whatever.
I have no idea because Barry, I don't think he definitely didn't make the staff who were in the team play, and I was a staff member at the time. So I don't think it was much.
I actually think it was pretty cheap. I think it was more like something like $60 or $80.
Wow.
Yeah, it really wasn't much.
So you take that, and then you take into consideration how much business they would have done over the Easter weekend, because this is sidetracked, right? So they've got the go-karts and the bloody mini putt and all that sort of crap. Is that right?
The difference is back then, the Laserforce was brand new. We'd only taken over from Zone 3 in October of '95, and it was still building. The guys from Zone had made sure that everybody that they had on their books who'd ever had a birthday party there or played a game got a mail out saying, "We've closed at Sidetracked. Please come to our new centre."
Wow.
Not saying there was anything still there. So it took a good probably 12 months to recover in terms of the Laserforce business-wise. I'm pretty sure it was about 12 months it took Barry to recover the loss of that database of people who'd had games, had parties and stuff there. And they got this really good manager in, Rob Seeney, and he did an amazing job just boosting up Laserforce and getting it going and getting a huge turnover of numbers. He was really good at managing members' nights and getting members playing, and that was our boom time. So when he was there from probably late '96 to late '99, 2000.
So '96, that tournament tournament at Sidetrack, you got Brisbane, Oakleigh, Townsville, Ballarat. What were some big takeaways that you guys had from that tournament, or things that you look back on now and kind of go, well, maybe we could have done that a lot better than we did.
Wow.
Well, not playing on the Easter weekend was one of them.
That was a big one. But also, two main things I remember is we didn't know how to double resupply. We were not even whichever of the Kellys came down and taught us how to play Space Marines did not explain that you could double resupply. So we were doing single resupplies and getting absolutely smashed because of that.
I would assume
until the
that
Townsville guys pulled us aside and went, you can do this, don't you?
classic Brisbane, always not explaining the rules properly.
Don't get me into that. We set aside on Good Friday. There was a 4.5 hour meeting. Traj, it was about that long, you reckon?
Oh, it would have been, yeah.
To go through the rules and explain in intricate detail the rules that used to be written in Paul McGugan lawyer speak, and nobody really understood.
Well, even from that point, look, before that, Townsville misinterpreted the chasing rule, and they were using the rule where you couldn't approach a deactivated player along a length of 3 meters. So, if I shot you, Steve-O, and you're 10 meters away from me, if I wanted to shoot you again, I can only walk 3 meters towards you. That was their rule.
That's right. I remember that, and they got really dirty.
Yep. We tried so hard to change them around to the way it should be interpreted, and they just didn't want a bar of it.
But that's weird though, because it's so much. It frees you up so much to play it the proper way. Like why would you want to try and limit yourself, or is it more? I guess it's more trying to limit the other teams.
Well, it's it actually came back from our first visit to them in Townsville. It was, this works in our field. Why would we want to do it any other way? And we do see that a lot as we're talking to other centres about the rules and how they're supposed to work. Guys, they're universal. They're supposed to work in every field this way. And this was certainly Townsville were one of the first centres where trying to get the rules interpreted the same way was just a task. It was a task and a half.
I suppose their wording of the rule wouldn't actually work at all in your maze. Your maze is way too big. You wouldn't be able to police that.
This is true. Way too big, and it possibly could have worked their way in Oakleigh's field the way it was configured then, but really wasn't the point.
I'm glad we didn't adopt their method, because that would have just been horrible. Although we still had some players who could have done some serious damage to you using the Townsville version of the rules in that configuration of the Oakleigh maze, because that mazy section that we had,
the chicken wire run.
The chicken wire, yeah.
Is that how it was in 2003? Was it in that configuration?
Same as it was when you got there the first time.
Yeah, I remember that.
When Snookums could hold that entire half of the maze without chasing anybody.
Oh, that was easy.
Yeah.
Back then, and I remember two things from that first Nats was one was in the very final game playing Commander, and my suit stopped working, and I left the field to change it, and I had a nuke. So I changed suits, and I had a nuke that I didn't use.
Rough.
I can't remember if we won that game, because we had the I think it was Townsville was in the other team in the finals, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, you guys were a class above. We'd only been playing Space Marines for a number of weeks.
Yeah. So we had Townsville bailed up in the columns room in the final game, just pounding them, and we were resupplying in the ramp above, and I couldn't shoot anyone, and I just went, I got to get out of here and change my suit. So I did that, and we lost a nuke, but we ended up winning the game regardless.
Nice.
And the other thing I remember was the Masters game following that, and just running around in that chicken wire maze with one of the god suits and just pounding everybody. I got rapid fire. It's the first time it ever happened to me. I picked up my rapid fire, and then I ran out of rapid fire, and then I picked it up again before I even got shot once.
That was your 15 grand game, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was
a massive game.
Like I said, it was a god suit, but just running around that chicken wire maze, I was just resetting left, right, and centre. So, yeah, two things I remember from that competition.
I'm going to tell you another thing that you'll remember when I tell you. Wasp's surrender.
Oh, did that happen there?
Yes, it is, down in the toilet when when the Brisbane team were resupplying in the back toilet.
Yep. He just walked in and just stood there and just let us all shoot him.
Oh, really?
That was the first unsportsmanlike penalty that was given.
So basically he pulled a stallion before it was a stallion. Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Was Wasp from Ballarat?
Nothing compared to Wasp.
Wellington. Yeah,
No,
Stallion's from Wellington. Wasp is from Ballarat, Stallion's from Wellington.
Oh, yeah. I remember Stallion. I don't think I had the pleasure of meeting Wasp.
Yeah, Steve-O. He was there in 2008. You met him.
Is that Shane?
Craig.
No, that's Shane's Wolfman. Craig.
Okay, yeah. No, I remember. I remember Craig.
Craig, every time he left the Oakleigh maze, went, I'm never going back there. And he'd be back.
Happens.
He was nice people, Craig.
He was good people.
Yeah. Outside of lasers, or?
Yeah. Outside of lasers, he's a lovely guy.
Yeah.
He's like a lot of us. We white line when we play, and we don't like to lose.
Absolutely.
And when you're the big fish in your own maze, and you go somewhere else, and you are not even a minnow, it's hard, for some people it's hard to take. There've been a lot of people over time who don't like losing and don't come back to the national or international circuit because they're not as good as other people, and they think that they're better. Like they think that their abilities are amazing, and in their own maze they're amazing, but they get smashed elsewhere.
It's such a shame too, because Laserforce is obviously the main reason why we have a nationals, but like the stuff that happens outside of the play is the reason for me anyway that I keep coming back. Like it's just the relationships that you make with the people that play, and all of the social drinking times that happen afterwards is just magical.
That's it.
A lot of that didn't start happening until around 2006. Oh, I take that back. The 90. What year was Townsville? 99.
I think it was 99 because there was Gosford Gosford and Newcastle
Nine-
before that.
99 was in Newcastle because that's the one that I was at, so I know that date.
Newcastle was definitely after 98, yes. And Gosford was before that.
Yeah, Gosford was 97.
That's it. Yep. And I remember that one too. That was the year Fredo won the Masters. No, sorry,
Yeah.
Fredo didn't win the Masters. He was expected to win.
Yeah,
A guy from Townsville won it.
it was Sass, wasn't it?
Sass. No, it wasn't Sass. It was the other one. Nemesis. Yeah. Now he won the Masters that year after we'd won the Space Marines competition. No, we didn't. We lost it. That's right. Brisbane lost in Gosford. Yep,
Yeah.
we lost it in the final in Gosford because a few different reasons. We had our ace who was
A dirty cheat.
counting everybody. Yeah. He was playing Commando. He was a kid, but
Yeah.
we had him in there. That was memorable from one of the games where I think he was actually playing Gosford. Started the game, he ran into the other team, pounded them, returned to the resupply, said, "Hang on, I'm out of shots. I've got no missiles left." He wanted Prophet, who was our heavy go attack. He had a nuke. He said, "Wait, I've got a nuke." He pulled his nuke. Then he said, "Wait, I've got another one." Now, the only way you can get 2 nukes at the start of a game is to use all of your 30 shots and all of your 5 missiles and not miss one.
Jesus.
He did that.
Yeah.
Ow.
No, I mean, no, because you can get your 2 gens.
You can,
Yeah,
but they
just
only had
take-
1 gen in that field. There was no neutral target. It was only 1 gen.
Wow.
He didn't
Oh,
have
was
it.
2, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, he shot all of his 30 shots, and all of his 5 missiles into the opposition players,
That's
and then
insane,
nuked
man.
twice.
Trash guy.
That's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yep. And that one's also memorable because, I mean, Brisbane lost everything. We had Nemesis won the Masters in that game. But I'm going to call it controversial because in the very last game, with probably what would be deemed the worst suit in the rotation, he wore that. Now, he went and he outscored everybody in the game. He needed to outscore Fredo by 1,000 points, and he needed to outscore me by something like 12 or 1,300 points. Fredo and I were that close. And he beat everybody by about $2,000 all up. And then we looked at his scorecard, and the other 2 Townsville players that were in there, he shot collectively something like 60 times.
Collusion.
Nothing we could prove, but the worst suit in the field, you've scored twice as many points as anyone else has been able to score, and half of those came from 2
Right.
players. Yeah, we're a bit sus about that.
Masters, wasn't it?
That was the last Masters, yeah.
Didn't they have a Masters in 2002 at Auckland?
We did, yes.
Yeah.
Because Rusty
And-
dislocated his shoulder.
For the first time.
There was also a Masters in 99 in Newcastle.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so we didn't. We must have done one then in Townsville.
There was also one in
I'm trying to
2001
remember.
in Brisbane.
There were a few more Masters after that, yes. And they dropped off. There was a lack of interest in it, and the greatest interest lying in playing SM5.
I think SM5 is kind of, I wouldn't say the more intelligent game, but like certainly the more strategic.
Definitely.
So from the 90s, I believe there was a couple of like you guys made your way across to the States to play a couple of nets.
I didn't make it there till 2010, 2009, 2010.
Chula Vista.
Chula Vista. That was my first trip to the States.
All right.
2010.
I went in 2002 and then again in 2004.
Yeah, it was 2004 because you stayed at my apartment for like a week plus on that trip. So
Was that-
believe
On
me,
that, on that recliner couch.
Yep, that's the one.
Was that held in Sacramento?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, obviously, because you stayed on the couch, so I can put shit together. That's rad. So, so we enter the early 2000s, or as I like to call it, the age of Guy Next Door. So, I remember my first nationals in 2003, and for me, I had a great week. But obviously there was some boiling over of sorts of bad blood do you guys want to talk about that, or would you rather leave it buried?
That was the Melbourne one, wasn't it?
It was.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Well, look, that was the one we played at night, and when you get a group of people together and you play long hours and you don't sleep, because let's be honest, most people had 2 to 3 hours sleep because then they got up and did stuff during the day.
Yeah, we did.
And you guys were staying in the city. I had the Wellington guys on my floor at my place. There was a whole lot of factors that went into getting people really angry, and not the least of which I made some errors with the Oakleigh team in terms of selecting players. I had a player tell me that it was going to be his last Nationals ever because he was moving.
Was that Big Dave?
No, I didn't have a Dave. Big Dave is
Big Dave, Brisbane player. That's right.
Yeah. There was some behind the scenes stuff going on. No, 2000 was it 2003?
2003 was
2003 when Jared and Mental were going to go.
I
thought that was Fredo and Mental.
But all of them.
Or was it Fredo and Mental?
And yeah, it was
sensing a common theme here.
That's right, because that was the year you bought the boys the first time, wasn't it, Trash?
Yeah, that would have been 2006. No, 2007.
Okay, so
the first time when we hired the bus and drove down. Yeah, so that would have been 2003, 2004. Yep.
Yeah.
So we had, there was a lot of bad blood, but there was a lot of frayed tempers. There was a lot of, to coin a phrase, shit stirring.
There was a lot of that.
Yeah.
But also, some of the issues came from the fact that there were no referees.
Well, there were, but there were. I think most of us were like Auckland were new, basically. We'd played the previous year, but not. It was different. It was our first time traveling to a Nationals.
It was when you could veto as many referees as you wanted.
That's right.
And we ended up with the final series being played with 3 referees, and that's never going to end well. And it doesn't matter. I mean, okay, there was already strained tensions because people were tired, and it'd been a long tournament, and it was all at night. But with only that many people playing, only that many people reffing, and this is pre-ref suits, so it's all done
after
with
the fact,
sheets of paper and angry people who feel hard done by because their team have not done what they wanted or whatever's happened, and there were so many factors that just made that week.
There was a rotation tournament as well.
It was the rotation tournament, which I liked. I liked that idea. I thought it was wonderful. But it was more that it meant that we had to play 6 rounds. And so we were pushing really hard. We played a lot of games. People were tired. Referees were getting vetoed as soon as they didn't agree with a captain pretty much in the first 2 days. So the number of referees was whittled right down. And I think the way we handle referees now is a lot better than it was handled back then. And that I think that's what it boils, for me, that's what it boils right down to. People were tired. We didn't handle, collectively as a group, we didn't handle the referees very well. And it led to what happened at the end of the tournament, which is really unfortunate.
It is, but the silver lining from there is I think that, I think the following year we didn't have an Australia-New Zealand Nationals.
No, not
That's true. That is true.
And then the year after that, it was back in Brisbane. And I don't think you guys travelled down for that one.
We sent 3 people. We sent Dragon,
Shags,
CJ, and
Judy. Yeah, that's right.
That was Goofball's first tournament from Sugarland. He was from Sugarland.
Yeah, it was his first Australian tournament. He'd already played in the US, of course.
Yeah. So he and Dragon stayed here at my place for that week.
We, I remember, so Than was in Auckland by this stage, and
yes,
we made the fatal mistake of not putting him on our team, and he got made to play with the you played with the Melbourne boys that did travel, is that right?
I
Yeah,
did,
you were playing with
and
Judy and CJ.
and that was that was a super painful week. That was and ended that week on 0 tournament points, which is, I mean, honestly, that takes some effort to not take a single game from anybody across an entire week like that.
You guys were close to taking points from us, though. I remember one game you went off and just schooled us. We were so close to losing.
Yeah.
Fuck you guys for not taking me.
Well, so to be fair on that, there were in the original, that tournament was the first time that I thought there were going to be U.S. players coming down, and other Sacramento players specifically, which at that point, because I'd only been in Auckland for a few months, I was still very much a Sacramento player as far as that went. So some of me not being on Auckland was because I was kind of holding myself separate, like, well, there's supposed to be other U.S. people coming down, and that's really where I'm going to be more slotted. And then that, of course, didn't happen, and I ended up playing on a team with CJ and Judicator, and I'm trying to remember who else was on that team. I know we only had five people, and I know Flame Drake played for us. Flame Drake ended up playing for 2 teams that week because he basically became our permanent 6th.
He was also with the Wellington team as well, I think.
The Brisbane B team.
It would have been Jeff. Did you play with Jeff in that one, Chris?
Was Jeff? Yeah, I think so. Or was that 2001?
You, Judy, CJ would have been the 5, and Dragon would have been the 5.
I've kind of blocked a lot of it from my memory because it was a very not necessarily fun week as far as the playing went. I did have it was like on a personal level. I did have a couple of good games that were like, okay, yeah, by the way, yes, I do know how to play this game, which was kind of nice. I had a heavy game where went 82 for 82 for 100% accuracy, and of course that didn't help. And then there was one practice game, and Steve-O, I think this is the game that you're thinking of. There was a practice game where I played with a different team, but I was playing as a commander, which is unusual for me. It was unusual for me then, and it's still unusual for me now. And I just remember just taking you guys to school, just like, let me just smack you around. And there was some issues with Nightmare on the Auckland team. He at the time was like saying, oh, maybe I want to go home, I'm not having any fun. And I remember you guys were trying to like low key say, yeah, dude, that's cool. If you want to go, just go, and we'll just pick up Than, and that's okay. But the positive side of that was that, like, from that and some other things, I mean, that really kind of honestly set the foundation for me to basically rebuild us for 2006, because at that point it's like, okay, if I'm gonna be here, I'm not gonna have this useless site, because I just can't deal with that. So from a purely selfish standpoint, it ended up working out really well for me, because after we got back from that trip, there was just a lot of, okay, we're just gonna let Than do stuff. And
we entered the age of Than. It was a magical time.
So, personally it worked out. It wasn't so great for some people, but for me it worked out fine.
So I think like the hangover from the 2003 blowback, the good stuff that came out of that was, I think, people had a blueprint for how Nats shouldn't be, because I mean that was my first introduction, and like it was brutal. Like, we went out for the awards dinner, I remember, in Melbourne, and we went to Lone Star, I think it was, and it was just, the whole evening had such a shitty undertone to it. Like, people were still raw, people were started drinking, and it was.
Only Ran and Whippy stayed from Brisbane. A certain other person in the chat, I think, was a whole box of 4X that you drank. Right?
No.
And didn't make it.
I didn't go.
No, you didn't go.
I boycotted the dinner.
I remember
That's how angry I was.
Rusty and Fredo did turn up. I don't know if they stayed, but they were. I remember they turned up and they started whipping some shit at Tachyon from Auckland, because he was one of the refs in the final. And I remember them just like giving him a bunch of shit over dinner, but I don't recall them staying. I think Ran and Whippy were the only ones that stayed. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the others didn't stay. And
But-
it was, I mean, to be fair to the Brisbane guys, they lost the whole thing on a penalty that was given retrospectively.
Yeah.
2 games later.
Yeah.
So, like, I can 100% understand how angry they were.
It was rough, but I think like that sets a precedence for how reffing is done now, how people just treat each other in general at nationals, and what came out of that when your guys' sites finally came back together at a tournament, which was in Auckland in 2006.
Auckland, the land of milk and honey.
It was.
I think the other reason we didn't
And
have a
repaired
team
friendships.
I think the other reason we didn't have a 2005 team was because I was in the UK.
Oh,
And
that's
so
right.
I was organising for us, and nobody wanted to organise.
Yeah.
And I was actually in Australia at the time, but I had 4 weeks holiday, and I'm like, I can't really justify going to Brisbane for 10 days when I'm only home to see my family for 4 weeks for the first time in 2 years.
Yeah. So you did a thing, and you were like, well, if you guys aren't going to organise it, fuck it.
It wasn't that. Because I knew I wasn't going, and I really hadn't played.
Yeah.
I was going to the Peterborough site as often as I could, but that was an hour train ride away to the north of London, so it was just difficult.
But that the 2006 tournament was, from a social standpoint, was awesome, and even actually from from like an Auckland standpoint, us being. That was the first like competitive tournament that we had as a site. It was awesome.
Ultra competitive.
Yeah.
It was a really good tournament from a play perspective. All the teams were. I mean, Brisbane won it, didn't you? Is that right?
We did.
Fucking
We-
totem pole.
Well, we did, but we it took us a while to hit our straps. We were getting beaten by Auckland, and we were getting beaten pretty well because Virus was just
He was on
owning.
fire.
He was owning. But we concocted our little plan to reduce the amount of points he could score. So we weren't actually battling him; we just weren't giving him points,
That was
and it
law,
worked.
wasn't it?
Well, and then
The totem pole,
and-
if you will.
The totem pole,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
and then
Totem
Virus
pole.
and Lone Soul couldn't figure out to stop giving you points by running in, and I know on a previous podcast Steve-O's mentioned this, but like I have never been as genuinely mad.
He turned
game.
red. He actually turned red. You were in a shade of scarlet that I've never seen a human person turn.
Well, Chris ended up having to play commander in the last game of the finals in that one.
Why?
That was because poor old Sam's suit kept flipping backwards and forwards, and he was getting penalised for tilting.
Oh, really?
That's right. That's when they had the really sensitive. Yes.
Really sensitive.
Yeah.
Yes.
The straps were his straps were really loose.
Oh, yeah.
Like he was tightening them constantly, but the straps that he had on the suit that he liked to wear were so loose.
Lone
and as soon as he
Soul,
ran, they would flip.
Lone Soul had the same issue that tournament. His suit was constantly tilting. I think he got pulled up a few times for it.
Well, that's because he's a skinny little so-and-so.
Well, he was.
Yeah.
If you listen to the Soul, I feel your pain, bro. I feel your pain.
So we'd worked out to stop giving Sam points. That was essentially all we needed to do. So it was the only people we let out to attack were Rusty as commander and myself as heavy, and we would pinch the Auckland resupply.
It was so good,
And-
that pincer as well. It was like timed perfectly.
And what you guys call a totem pole, we call the wall, but I suppose it really was. We just had 4 players sitting in a line at various heights, one behind the other. So any person that stepped around the corner was taking up to 4 hits, and they had no way knowing of breaking that. We only ever had 2 players out at a time, so just Sam couldn't pick up the points, and we got into your resupply, and we were able to really just push the buttons and kill you off pretty quickly.
It was a masterclass. Like going from the week, and I think we actually won the week on points from memory. And seeing you guys rally and like put an actual tactical plan into place is just, it goes to show why you guys are so successful at tournaments. Like it was so good.
I think it was that was the first time that I, as a captain, I almost literally dragged my team by the ear. We were infighting so badly, and everyone outside, let's just go. And we sat down and we got through it. We hashed it out, and then we came up with a plan.
This was at your you guys were staying in like a hotel that had frequent 1 hour visitors, if you will, right?
Yes, yeah, that was quite funny actually. I'm remembering that now.
But yeah, from a social standpoint, I remember the awards dinner had such a different feel.
Well, we were missing 2 players at the awards dinner.
Oh, that's right.
Because one of them was in hospital.
That's right.
And the other one was picking him up.
After being an idiot on a luge.
On a luge.
Yeah. Hang on. My luge is going too fast. Let me just stick my leg out here and stop it against this log.
Oh, why is my leg backwards?
Put out your feet.
I'm not a gymnast. Why is my ankle behind my ear?
But that was also, that trip to Rotorua was one of the highlights of Nationals.
I'm so gutted I missed it.
It was a bloody long drive, but we had so much fun on that luge.
Yeah.
Even Dragon, who left a good 80 or so centimeters of skin on the luge.
Oh, that's right.
Brakes, Dragon, brakes.
People from Australia apparently don't know how brakes work. So, we won't
It wasn't that. He wanted to get past Aaron.
Oh, Scraps.
Scraps.
Because Scraps had just come through him on the inside, and he wanted to get past him. Nah, don't care. And I got a very blurry photograph taken by Duckman showing Dragon's toboggan thing, and then Dragon about a meter behind it. Just.
I wonder how airborne he got.
Oh, I don't know. Oh.
I mean, imagine that, like people who competitively play Laserforce being competitive at something else. Like,
I know, who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
It's very shocking. Very shocking.
Put their body on the line just to win an arbitrary game. So we've been talking for a little while now about Nationals up until 2006, which I have very fond memories of. But we'll leave it there for today. We'll pick this up in the next episode. I guess this is really a 2-parter. But thanks, boys, for joining us on this one. And we'll catch up with you all next week. I've been Guy Next Door.
And I've been Fan.
And always remember to backtrack, kids. See you next time.